Hi, and welcome to The Regulated Mother. I'm your host, Afshan Tafler, nervous system resilience coach and mother of a hypersensitive, high-needs child. If you're raising a differently wired kid with PDA, autism, OCD, ADHD, or big emotional needs, this is a space for you. Here we talk about what most people don't, how it really feels, how your nervous system responds, and how to find your way back to calm, courage, and connection, even on the hardest days. You're not alone. Let's begin. Everything feels so out of control. This is one of the most common things I hear from moms of PDA or high needs kids. If you're parenting a PDA or high needs child, you already know there is nothing that exposes your relationship with control quite like this path. Okay, you may have started this journey thinking that you were fairly flexible and patient and an open-hearted person, and then you found yourself face to face with chaos, unpredictability, constant refusals, meltdowns, school avoidance, okay, hygiene battles, sensory overload, and explosive reactions to even the smallest requests. And suddenly, you're clinging to control in ways you didn't even know were inside you, okay? Maybe you've asked yourself, why does this mess bother me so much? Why do I feel like I'm losing myself? Why can't I just stay calm? Why does letting go or surrendering feel like I'm giving up or falling apart? So it's not because you're failing, okay? It's because control has been your nervous system's safety strategy for most of your life, okay? And PDA parenting asks you to let go in ways that most parents will never have to face, okay? And it's not because your child is difficult, but because their neurology, their nervous system, doesn't respond to pressure, structure, timelines, or expectations the way the world taught us it should. Okay, so today I'm sharing a personal story, really two layers of the same story that forced me to confront control at its roots. Okay, so we're going to talk about why losing control feels so threatening, why your body reacts so strongly to chaos or unpredictability, why letting go is such an essential part of this journey, okay? And how to begin releasing control without feeling like you're giving up, okay? So if letting go feels terrifying, if you're exhausted from trying to keep everything together, if you feel ashamed for how strongly mess or chaos or your child's resistance or lack of compliance affects you, this episode is going to help you understand yourself with compassion and find a different way forward. So let's begin. A few years ago, when my son's behavior was at its most intense, my home didn't look like a home, okay? It looked like it had survived a storm, or more like a tornado, okay? Walls were dented, holes in walls, doors damaged, hanging off the hinges, objects scattered, drawers empty, and piles of belongings dumped down the stairs or across rooms faster than I could comprehend, okay? The chaos didn't feel like clutter. It felt like a physical representation of how chaotic my life had become inside. Okay, so back then, I tried to clean constantly. I fixed constantly. I repainted walls. I repaired furniture. I organized rooms and tried to create some sense of order out of the daily destruction. So not because I cared deeply about perfection, although there may have been a bit of that at play, but it was more because chaos felt like danger, okay? When your nervous system is already stretched so thin because you've been under chronic stress for so long, mess and unpredictability don't register as neutral. They register as threats. Okay, so I didn't have language for it at the time, but I can name it now, okay? My nervous system was trying to regulate itself through external control, right? Controlling things on the outside so that I could feel okay on the inside. And then years later, long after I thought I had made peace with a certain level of chaos, it happened again. My son, who's PDA and OCD, his OCD tendencies intensified, where making a mess and dumping things out of drawers, out of cupboards became a daily ritual. Okay. So everything from drawers, cupboards, closets would end up in massive piles down the stairs, like all the way to the basement in this huge pile. Okay. And he dropped them from the top. Okay. And every day is 2 hours of cleaning. Okay. Which then could disappear in seconds or minutes. Right. So one night I walked into my bathroom and I found the bathtub filled with random objects, right? Like my pajamas were in there, towels were in there, my robe was in there, my toothbrush was in there, stuff from the shower was in there. And then, what was on top of it all, or like mixed in, was a toilet bowl brush and a toilet plunger. Okay. So the part of me that hates bacteria and that craves cleanliness, that needs things to be where they belong, just froze, right? My nervous system froze, tightened, my jaw clenched, my chest tightened, my breath stopped, and my whole body screamed, make this stop, fix this, control this. Okay, it was a visceral, full body reaction, one that took me straight back to those early years of chaos and helplessness. Okay, so every ounce of my survival system wanted to march downstairs and yell and scream at my son, stop this madness now. Okay, but I didn't do that. In that moment, as I regulated myself, I realized something profound. Okay, I wasn't being asked to tolerate mess. I was being invited to surrender yet another layer of control, a layer I didn't even know I was still gripping. Okay. This wasn't about the bathtub, and it wasn't about the pile of objects, and it wasn't about my son. It was about how deeply my sense of safety was still tied to control and expectations of things being a certain way, and how letting go of control and expectations would require me to once again connect to the deeper learning that was waiting here for me in this experience. Okay, so before we talk about what we need to do, in terms of letting go of control, like surrendering or stepping into allowing all that is as part of the solution to these triggering moments that come up, we really need to understand what control is. Okay, so control isn't about perfection, although it can be, right? And control isn't necessarily about discipline, okay? Control isn't necessarily about being organized. What control is about is safety, okay? From a nervous system perspective, it's about safety. It is a nervous system response, a way that the body tries to find stability when it feels overwhelmed, scared, or unsure, right? So it mounts this, it mobilizes energy. It's the sympathetic state to do something to create safety on the outside so that you can feel safer on the inside. Okay, so control says, if I can make the environment predictable, I can feel okay. If I can keep things together, I won't fall apart. If I can stop the chaos outside, I can avoid the chaos within. Okay, so when you're parenting a PDA or high needs child, chaos becomes a daily reality, right? Like it's daily reality. Transitions cause explosions. Simple requests trigger meltdowns. School becomes impossible. Hygiene becomes a battle. And suddenly your nervous system is clinging to anything that feels like predictability or scaffolding or some sort of structure, right? So you grip because you're scared, or you insist because you're overwhelmed, or you correct because you fear the future. Okay, you cling because letting go feels like losing yourself. Okay, so control is not a character flaw. It is your body trying to protect you. And this makes sense from a nervous system perspective because we are designed to feel safer when we have control and when the outer world matches. Okay, the outer world matches our inner expectations of how things should be. Okay, this is why letting go feels like danger. So even when your mind understands your high needs or PDA child's neurology, your body still remembers a lifetime of relying on control as its primary way of coping. Okay. So most parenting models assume that control is a normal part of raising children. Okay. Control their schedule, right? Control their behavior, control their routines, control their hygiene, control their learning, control their sleep, control their outcomes. But parenting a PDA child or a high needs child, who needs a lot of control, like this really turns all of this upside down for us. Okay. Your child's nervous system interprets any demands, even gentle ones, as threat, and attempts to control them, even with love, can escalate their fear, their resistance, their shutdown, or explosive reactions. Okay. So this means that parenting a PDA child requires letting go of control in ways that most parents never face. Okay. So you may be asked to let go of school attendance, right? Your child doesn't go to school anymore. Traditional learning. Maybe they don't want to do any kind of learning at home like my child. Hygiene battles. Okay. Toothbrushing fights, structured routines, morning timelines, bedtime expectations, chores, right? Forget about chores. Respectful behavior. Forget about that too. Being on schedule. Nope. Social participation. Very hard. Family outings. Very hard. Screen limits. Nope. Meal expectations. Right? The entire cultural script of how children should be. Okay. So you are required to let go of a huge amount of conditioning. That's why it's so hard, right? And each letting go triggers something different in your body, because letting go of control in PDA parenting is not about lowering your standards, okay? It is about recognizing that external control will never create safety for a child whose nervous system panics when pressured. Okay, the more you control, the less safety they feel. The more you insist, the more they resist. The more you push, the more they collapse or explode. Okay, letting go of control and expectations is not giving up. Okay, it is choosing the path that actually leads to regulation and connection. Okay, but it comes at a cost. Your nervous system must relearn what safety feels like, not through the external environment, like or order or compliance, right? But through presence inside, regulation inside, and this internal anchoring, okay, that comes with helping yourself feel safer when things are not according to how your conditioned brain says they should be. Okay? Okay, so letting go of control is not difficult because you're rigid or stubborn. Okay, so I want you to understand that. And you probably do understand that to some degree. It's not because we're rigid or stubborn, and some people might think that way. It's difficult because it goes against everything you were conditioned to believe about what makes a good parent and a successful human. Okay, that's really like the bottom line. It's all of our conditioning and programming that gets triggered here. So most of us grew up with the message that good parents have control over their children. Okay, we're taught that good children obey, good parents enforce. Respect comes from compliance. Structure produces responsibility, right? A calm, well-behaved child reflects well on the parent and means you're doing a good job. A dysregulated child means the parent isn't doing enough and must be doing something wrong. Okay? This is what replays in our system under the surface over and over again that causes us this triggering. And these weren't abstract concepts, okay? They were the unspoken rules that shaped our childhoods. They were reinforced in school, at family gatherings, in cultural expectations, and at every stage of our development. Control wasn't just a strategy. It was a moral measure of whether you were doing parenting right, and we see that everywhere, right? But beneath those messages was another layer. It's the conditioning around what it means to be a good and successful human. Okay. We absorb the beliefs that responsible people are organized, respectable people have order, worthy people achieve, successful people follow timelines, good humans are productive, disciplined, and consistent, mature adults hold it together. Okay, so when PDA parenting asks you to let go of routines, expectations, progress charts, and the picture of a normal life, your nervous system reacts as if your identity is being threatened, because it is. Letting go means challenging the very definitions of success, responsibility, and worth that shaped your childhood and your self-concept. Okay, it means grieving the life you imagined. And it means facing the fear that if you aren't controlling things, you might be failing, which is not the truth. That's just conditioning. Your nervous system isn't reacting to the moment in front of you, okay? It's reacting to a lifetime of messages that never applied to a child like yours, and maybe not even you. So no wonder letting go feels terrifying, okay? No wonder surrender feels like you're giving up. And no wonder mess brings up shame and fear. You're not just losing control, you're losing the version of yourself you were conditioned to be. Okay? That's your conditioning. That's your survival system. And it's not who you truly are. Okay, so this is where the teachings of spiritual teachers become not abstract wisdom, but lifelines. Okay, lifelines. So Tara Brach, whom I love, she teaches that surrender is not resignation. Okay, it's the moment we stop fighting reality long enough to see what's actually here. Okay, so control is the fight. Surrender is the softening. When we stop arguing with life, our nervous system finds a new kind of ease. Okay, and Eckhart Tolle teaches that suffering comes from resisting the present moment. Okay, not because the moment is easy, but because our mind insists it should be different, right? So we're having resistance to the moment that is. So PDA parenting is full of moments that don't match the picture we imagined. And letting go is not approving of those moments. We're not condoning them and approving them, right? But we're stepping out of the war that we're in with them. Okay, we're stepping out of the war with them. Okay, and Pema Chodron teaches that certainty is an illusion. And the attempt to control life is what keeps us trapped. And freedom comes from learning to stay with discomfort without abandoning ourselves. Okay, so parenting a PDA or high needs child asks this of you every day. And then Jack Kornfield teaches us about releasing the small self. Okay, the part of us that clings, resists, demands, and insists that life match our expectations. When we soften that grip, okay, we meet a deeper, wiser self, one capable of compassion even in the chaos. So these teachings, like to me, they're not lofty ideals, okay? They are practical guidance for a life like yours and mine, a life where surrender is not optional, but absolutely necessary, okay? Okay, so letting go of control doesn't mean letting go of your values, okay? It means shifting them, okay? So this is where you're going to be shifting, okay? You're going to shift from needing external order instead shifting to internal presence, okay? Shifting from compliance to connection, from timelines to trust, okay? From forcing outcomes to supporting nervous systems, from external safety cues to internal ones, okay? You can begin letting go by gently asking yourself these questions. Okay. What part of me is scared right now? Okay. Or what expectations am I carrying? Or what am I afraid will happen if I release this control? Right? Usually that comes down to, oh, I'll be failing. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not successful. Okay. What value matters more to me than this moment looking the way I wanted it to? Right? So it's really about prioritizing those values of like connection, unconditional love, um, nervous system safety, right, for your child and for yourself, essentially. And then what is this moment teaching me? That's the question I always like to ask. What is this moment teaching me? So letting go becomes easier when you anchor into values like connection, safety, compassion, presence, trust, internal stability, okay, versus needing your external to be stable. It's internal stability. So you don't need to like the chaos, okay? And you don't need to enjoy the uncertainty because no nervous systems do, okay? And you don't need to feel calm to let go necessarily, okay? You just need to stay with yourself long enough to recognize the fear underneath the gripping, the control, okay? And offer yourself compassion instead of tightening the reins. Okay, so a practice that I use a lot is allowing all that is. Okay, allowing this experience to be here too. I often say to myself, this too belongs. Okay, which I learned from Tara Brach. Okay, this too belongs. And you can even add a what if in front of it. What if this too belongs? What if this too belongs? To invite your brain into that possibility. Okay, the practice of allowing all that is requires you to be able to hold this fear that's getting triggered inside and bring cues of safety to it. Okay, it also requires becoming the awareness, which is I call the curious observer. You are the awareness of the conditioning and programming that is getting triggered underneath. So, can you become aware of that and help yourself understand deeply that this conditioning is causing you suffering and creates so much resistance and stress to what is here now. Okay. And then I also want to say that letting go of control and expectations is not giving up on your child either. Okay. It is instead choosing the only path that truly works for their nervous system and yours. Okay. So letting go of control is not a collapse, and it's not about, I give up, forget it. I let go of control, I surrender. I give up. It's not about that, okay? And it's not weakness, and it's not passivity, okay? Like, fine, forget it. Just surrender, let go. I can't take anymore, forget it. Let it be a mess, let it be chaos. Right? It's not giving in to the chaos and going into dorsal shutdown mode. Okay, although many of us can do that now, I've been there. Okay, letting go is the moment you shift from fighting life to meeting life. It is the moment you choose presence over pressure, compassion over fear, internal safety over external order. So letting go is not the end of your power. It is the beginning of it. It's the beginning of your power, your internal power, right? You're no longer controlled by the outside. You get to decide, right? Because the more you soften your grip on the outside world and needing it to be a certain way, the more you strengthen your inner world. Okay? You stop trying to create safety through your child's behavior being a certain way, and you start creating safety through your own presence and tolerance for being with what is. Okay? You stop trying to force predictability and start becoming the predictability your child needs and the predictability you need, right? To be able to say to yourself, this chaos and mess is expected. Okay, it's predictable. Yeah, it's here. Of course, this is here. And I can be okay with it. I can feel safe within it. Even though my body, my nervous system has all this fear inside or exasperation, I can bring safety to it, right? You stop trying to hold everything together and you start learning how to hold yourself. Okay. So you're not failing here. Okay. You are transforming and you're not losing control. You are learning the deeper truth about it. And you are becoming the parent your child needs and the parent your younger self always deserved. And if you are here listening to this, reading this blog, breathing through the discomfort, questioning your conditioning, grieving the life you imagine, softening into the life you have, then you are already on the path of surrender, the path of compassion, the path of truth, the path of inner safety, and the path of becoming. You are not falling apart, my friend. You are awakening. So if this spoke to you and helped you, please like, please share, please comment. I love to hear all the comments. Take care and have a great day. Thanks so much for listening to The Regulated Mother. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, grounded, or hopeful, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need it too. And if you want more nervous system tools and support, head to my website, illuminateyou.ca, to grab my free ebook and video series. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing brave and meaningful work.